Hello, and welcome back to the Calm and Connected podcast. I'm your host, Janine Halloran, and today I want to talk to you about a calm down kit that you can create using the online store Oriental Trading. So recently I've been doing some podcasts about different sort of calming kits that you can make. So I've done one at Target and I've done one at Michael's, two of my favorite places to go for calm down kits. But then somebody requested Oriental Trading, and so I said, sure, I'll look and see what kind of items I can get there that would be great for a calm down kit. So occasionally I do shop at Oriental Trading, and I have done a lot of shopping in the past at Oriental Trading, so I have lots of ideas of things you can do. And truthfully, I have a couple of items you might want to avoid, and I'll tell you why I avoid them. And then you can make your own decision and see if it makes sense for you. So I'll link to the other podcasts where I talk about all those things that you can get at Target and Michael's below. So the first thing I looked for at Oriental Trading was bubbles, because they're such a great way to help kids take deep breaths and learn to relax. So there's lots of bubble choices. I tend to like the bigger bubbles because the wands seem a little bit less flimsy and easier for kids to blow. So definitely getting some bubbles as a relaxation coping skill. The second thing that I love that I found at Oriental Trading was marble and mesh. So I am a huge fan of fidgets. I love talking about fidgets. I love finding new fidgets that are awesome and quiet and perfect for a classroom. And I actually also have a blog post all about awesome fidgets for kids. But for me, I absolutely adore the marble and mesh fidget because it's so quiet, but there's something kind of satisfying about moving the marble back and forth within the mesh. And so that is something that you can find at Oriental Trading. So that's a great strategy. And it's so quiet and it doesn't disturb the other kids in the classroom. A lot of times if kids have stress balls, they turn into just actual balls. You know, kids are tossing them like a squishy football becomes like a football and they're pretending they're in the NFL. A squishy basketball becomes like, let's try and get it into the trash can, all that sort of stuff. And that's why I prefer quieter, less distracting fidgets for kids. In terms of distraction, there are so many options at Oriental Trading. There are tons and tons of activity books. I saw, just as I was looking through the site, I saw things with sharks and dinosaurs, and I also saw those Melissa and Doug Water Wow activity books that I had talked about before, where you just put water in the pen and you wipe it over the board and the colors pop up. And it dries out so you can do it again. It's really cool. I love those activity books. Also, in terms of distraction, if you don't want to use those activity books, they have card games and they have board games like Quirkle and I Spy. So lots of distraction activities that can work for kids that could go in a calm down kit. For movement, I actually was thrilled to see that they had a Jacob's ladder. So those are a little bit more challenging to find. I'll put a little video of what a Jacob's ladder is and how it looks, so that you can see what kind of strategy that is. Now, that is not a great coping skill or a great fidget for in a classroom, but I would often use them in my own office when kids were talking to me. It was a way that they could keep their hands busy and do a little movement, and the noise wasn't super loud so we can continue to have our conversation, but it would not work in a classroom. You don't see Jacob's ladders everywhere, and so that's why I picked that one out from Oriental Trading. Another option at Oriental Trading was they had cards that you can shuffle, and that just means you have to teach kids how to shuffle, which is an important skill for them to learn. Just being able to shuffle and deal out cards and learning how to play card games is cool, but it's a great movement strategy, a movement coping skill for kids to be able to shuffle cards. So that's another option if you don't want to go with the Jacob's ladder. And finally, for processing, I actually like this tic-tac-toe / cornhole game, and the way I would do it is a little bit differently. I would actually put feelings faces in these different spots and use the bean bags as a way to open up conversations about feelings. They don't even have to start with themselves. You could prompt them. You could give them examples of, things that happen for kids, and then they could pick how would a kid feel. So just working on that emotional intelligence, working on understanding people's feelings, understanding how different things make different people feel is huge. So using that as a basis and then just adding in your own feelings faces or emojis or feelings words is a great strategy. So let's talk about a couple of things that I do not love at Oriental trading. So the first thing I do not love are these mesh stress balls. So I used to work with a middle schooler who had a lot of big angry feelings, and he loved movement. He loved being able to squeeze things. So he would squeeze Play-Doh and he would squeeze Theraputty. So one day I let him use my mesh stress balls and it popped everywhere and it was disgusting. And I thought, well, maybe that one was just a little bit weird. And then he came in a couple weeks later and it happened again. And so I don't really like to use those ones because, for the kids who have like just a little bit of a grip and they just want to squeeze a little bit, it's fine. But for those kids who really love squeezing, I would avoid this stress ball because then that whatever that liquid is gets everywhere, and you're not going to make friends with the custodian in your school, and you're not going to be pleased if it's all over your rug or all over your house. So I would stay away from that. The other thing I stay away from are things that make a ton of noise. So I think about those hands that go back and forth, and that just makes a lot of noise that a lot of people don't find appealing. And so it can be a distraction for other kids when you are working with somebody. Even if you're working one-on-one in an office, that it can be kind of loud, especially those hands that go back and forth. So I think it makes a lot of sense to try and avoid those in a school setting, and thinking about what will be less frustrating for you as a parent to be working with all the time. If you find that noise annoying, don't get it. And then the last thing, like I mentioned earlier, I try to avoid stress balls because they really do turn into regular balls that kids are playing with, and they can be really super aerodynamic, so they're like flying through the air, and that's really not helpful. I always think about, when you're working with a child on their coping skills and their coping strategies, you want to find things that are good for them, but also aren't distracting other people. So in this case, I think a lot of those stress balls distract other people and distract kids. It becomes a toy, not a tool to help them deal with their emotions. So if you have any ideas or suggestions of things that you like to use at Oriental Trading, please let me know. Or if you have a suggestion of another place you want me to look at and figure out what kind of items would go in a calm down kit, I'm happy to do that. My plan is to do Five Below and the Dollar Tree. I love going to the Dollar Tree and Five Below to find a bunch of different strategies that you can use for very low cost, which I really appreciate because sometimes you need a lot of strategies for a lot of different kids. So I will be doing those in the new year, so just keep an eye out for those and keep an ear out for those. If you like this podcast, please feel free to share it with your friends and colleagues and give us a rating or a review wherever you listen. That really helps us get found. And one last thing, please take a few moments, take care of yourself, and have a little fun. Have an awesome day.